We are just giving folks a few minutes to get logged in, so we will get rolling in just a few more minutes. Okay, I think we are going to go ahead and get started. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to what's actually the fifth webinar in Kirk's 2023 webinar series. Thanks so much for being with us today. Our presentation today will cover striving for financial sustainability in recycling programs. My name's Jamie Pavey, and I serve as the director of the Center for Environmental Leadership at Earlham College, which is in Richmond, Indiana. I'm also a member of the Marketing and Programs Committee of Kirk, which is the College and University Recycling Coalition, and I will be the moderator today. For those of you who aren't familiar with Kirk, it is a member-based organization that works to grow collegiate recycling and waste reduction efforts by fostering information sharing, educational support, and networking opportunities between staff, faculty, and student leaders implementing reduction and diversion programs. Today's session is part of our free webinar series that runs every other month all year long. It's designed to highlight innovative campus programs and provide trends and perspectives on a lot of different operational and educational topics tied to collegiate recycling and materials management. So today's program is actually the next to the last this year. So we will have one more webinar in December, which I will mention a little bit more about at the end of today's webinar. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any problems with audio or video during the webinar, you can go to Zoom's support center by visiting support.zoom.us. And to avoid all background noise, we've placed all but our panelists' lines on mute. We do encourage you to submit questions at any time using the Q&A function on Zoom. We'll get to as many of these as possible at the end of the presentation. So we'll have a time for Q&A after our first presenter, and then time also at after our second presenter, and then depending on how much time we have at the end, we might have some overall some time also for some overall Q&A. For general comments or notes, you can feel free to use the chat function that's also at the bottom of your screen, but questions go in the Q&A. Copies of the slides will be available, and the full recording will also be available through the Kirk website, and that will be provided in the chat for you as well. Okay, so I'd like to get going first by introducing Matthew Morin from Zabel, who is our sponsor for today's webinar. So Matt serves as the Director of Sales Development for Zabel Incorporated, and he has worked in sales development for 15 years across various industries, including business, analytics, medical imaging, security encryption software, even sustainable sparkling water. He is a passionate coach who is motivated by pushing his teams to be the best version of themselves. His former sales reps have called him a Ted Lasso of tech sales. Zabel's mission is to help organizations reach zero waste Zabel's mission to help organizations reach zero waste immediately resonated with Matt, who first worked with Zabel's CEO to introduce Zabel Zero to hospitals amidst the pandemic. Matt then continued to nurture his passion in waste by working with Bevy, a bottleless sparkling water solution aimed at reducing plastic waste. He is now back at Zabel to help universities achieve transparency and efficiency with their operations through the use of AI-driven insights. Okay, the floor is yours, Matt.
I almost regret the lasso comparison because now people are going to be looking for a charming Kentucky accent, and sorry to disappoint. Let me just share my screen real quick here. Great. Thank you, Jamie, for the intro. Yes, my name is Matt. Actually the head of sales development here at Zabel, and as she said, I've worked in sales for quite some time, spent a lot of my career selling data analytics software to sales teams. But I started doing a contract with Zabel in 2020 where I learned that data can be used, excuse me, for so much more than I ever realized. And it was through Zabel that I sort of adopted a passion for sustainability. And I took that at the end of my Zabel contract. I went to Bevy, where we sell sustainable beverage dispensers and help our clients really kill all their plastic waste. And around that time, Nick asked me to come back, where now we're helping universities really achieve transparency and efficiency towards their zero waste goals. So if you've already heard of Zabel, that comes as no surprise. We partner with a lot of sustainability focused associations. We've been featured by several prominent publications, as you can see here. But one of our biggest claims to fame, something we're proud of, are the grants that we've received from the US EPA to help advance our recycling infrastructure efforts in the United States. So this is all about Zabel Zero, two products that provide end-to-end waste management and workflow automation for universities, invoice analytics, and mobile tagging. And if you need the support, we have a team of zero waste experts and data scientists that will help you execute on your zero waste programs. So to dig a little bit deeper into each of those, and this is Daniel Chow, you're going to see him coming up a lot. He's a good friend of ours and one of our first big cheerleaders as a power user of Zabel. So invoice analytics starts with uploading your hauler invoices in almost any different format and letting our AI organize and categorize the fields so that you can extract valuable insights about your different waste streams, look at your service levels and your costs. The end result being that you can look for pickup anomalies, spot trends, adjust service levels, and reduce your hauling costs so you can negotiate a better rate. Now, the other product is our mobile tagging, something that you can do to really tag bin fullness and contamination using our AI. So using your phone's camera, the mobile app uses computer vision AI to suggest bin fullness and detects objects automatically to determine what contaminations you're seeing based on jurisdiction and historical data. Now, when that data is uploaded, you can also engage stakeholders with real-time alerts and notifications, creating workflows and custom alerts that are immediately emailed to the appropriate stakeholder. And at the end of the day, all of this information is used to help you run targeted zero waste campaigns that you can objectively measure, really seeing an aggregation around your contamination events and creating responses to them, tracking those tasks. And that way you really have a visual data to demonstrate the impact of your efforts. Just a few fun stats that we kind of like to show off. Through invoice analytics, our users have saved over 10% in yearly savings. Through our mobile tagging, the big one that I like to brag about is our users have diverted 340 tons from landfills. And that's the power that Zabel puts in your hands. Fully digitize your waste inventory, workflows, and analytics inside or outside the building, helping you achieve your zero waste goals. It can be deployed within 1 week and utilizes the latest in AI and machine learning technology to deliver real-time actionable insights. Now, all this wouldn't mean anything if we didn't have the stories to back it up. Mentioned Daniel Chow earlier. Well, UCSF were able to speed up their roadmap by identifying and tracking their waste issues, reducing mixed pickups, and unifying all of their teams, facilities, EVS, sustainability, everyone that needs to be on the same page in order to make an impact. We also worked with a major university hospital in California. We set them up on a 6-month pilot program and achieved tremendous success. 8 hours of time saved daily, 4 tons diverted from their landfill waste, and they saw a 63% increase in staff engagement in their zero waste campaigns, which was a really big win. So really quick, ASHE, one of the biggest conferences for sustainability in higher education, is actually going to be in person this year for the first time in a couple of years in Boston, October 29th through the 31st. So if you're around, if you're at the event, please stop by booth 47. We'd love to meet you. And finally, look, I love getting to know sustainability teams. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I'd love to hear your story. So I'll try to reach out, look for a connect request from me on LinkedIn. But if not, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to scan the QR code, grab my email address and reach out. I'd love to chat. So look, we're excited to be sharing the space with Lynn from UC Berkeley, Shannon from UNC Charlotte, who is actually a big Zabel user and has made a lot of progress using her team. And I'm sure she'd love to share that with you. But that's it. That's all I have. Thank you so much for your time today, everyone. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Matt and Zabel, for the sponsorship. And we will get rolling. So as Matt said, Shannon, who's going to be leading the presentation for the second half of the webinar, actually we'll be talking a little bit more about how they have been using Zabel at UNC Charlotte. So yeah, the topic today is around striving for financial sustainability and recycling programs. I think a lot of us that work in waste management within colleges and universities are definitely getting pressure from administrations about justifying our programs and trying to, demonstrate and provide assessment and data as much as possible to drive decision making and strategic plans and analyze services, lots of things. And it's a real challenge, I think, for a lot of us to figure out how to keep track of all this information. So yeah, we have a couple of folks that are going to share their stories with us about how they have been tackling these concerns. And first, we're going to have Lynn King, who serves as the manager of Cal Zero Waste at UC Berkeley. Lynn managed the R4 recycling program at UC Davis for 15 years, and now Cal Zero Waste at UC Berkeley for the past 12. UC Berkeley has won the Pac-12 Road to Zero Waste basketball competition 5 times and has earned a USGBC True Zero Waste Platinum certification for Chow Hall. He's currently on the executive board of the Zero Waste Campus Council under the California Resource Recovery Association. He has also served on the board of Kirk in the past. Thank you, Lynn. And also on the board of the California Resource Recovery Association, California Collegiate Recycling Council, WR3A, and Zero Waste College and University Technical Committee. Welcome, Lynn. I will now turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, does that work?
Looks good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jamie, for the introduction. So, again, thank you, Kirk, for inviting me today, and welcome to those of you joining the webinar today. I'm really glad that we are talking about this specifically, being that there's always challenges that's facing our industry. And I get a lot of emails, fortunately, from lots of campuses. It was like, how do I do this and how do I help? So these webinars are great for us to be able to provide that information. Just a quick overview of today's presentation. I'm going to go through a little bit of the experiences that I've had in the industry from a few campuses and those that have been involved in a lot of campuses throughout the years, and their challenges and also successes. And so I'm going to share that a little bit between the stories there. Then provide a quick introduction as far as the UC Berkeley, how we got started and the phases we're in. And then at the end, just a few key financial strategies, hopefully to point out that I've seen. Again, it's not all the different ones, but just ones that I've seen around the different campuses, and then some possible pitfalls, and then we'll close the presentation. So I did want to tell, again, a kind of a tale of three differing systems. So first, what I've seen in our colleges, universities, and even private sector is that there really is and this is one of my first positions, is that there's a solid waste division. And again, I don't think, even though we've had like 30 plus years of recycling and how important recycling is, a lot of institutionalized programs are still considered solid waste. And they're not really recycling, they're just called solid waste. A lot of those are into utilities or facility services function. Either it's an in-house program or contracted out to a private hauler. But then that's been kind of the run of every campus as far as what they established. And then what I was involved in the past was, we've created what waste reduction recycling programs that not are necessarily connected to these other divisions, but it's a good thing to do. So, with students, and me including one, years and years ago, that lots of students have advocated for recycling, and I was one. And I, believe it or not, as a student, picked up paper recycling as a student when I was at the university, but it was not connected to the actual facilities part. It was students really wanting to do the right thing, and they're like, go ahead, do that, but it really wasn't connected to the overall operations of the campus. So this is one of those things that even though the campus created a waste reduction recycling program, some of you might be in that kind of scenario, that it doesn't align with basically the solid waste part, is that even though we're trying to reduce waste and recycle, but you've got a competing interest of utilities who literally is the solid waste. So this is one of those scenarios. I think it's when you hit budget issues or considering, are you needed? They always come back and say, well, it's a good thing to do, but it's not really required, or there's a student group who's kind of doing that, which I find problematic, in that if we don't combine these two, that you're competing all the time. And unfortunately, when you see solid waste as a utility, there's always required, well, we can't cut that, that's solid waste, but recycling, okay, that's just a good thing to do. And when we don't have monies for it, then that might have to go get cut. So I've seen this over and over again. So this is one of those where I think there needs to be a discussion if your solid waste program is actually part of a recycling program. So the second stage, I would say, is the same, similar, is that when I got to Berkeley, this is where I took that advantage of, it was a combined program with recycling and trash, so with refuse and recycling services, under the same unit, under the same management, which I was excited about because it was no longer the solid waste and recycling separate programs, separate discussions of budgets. I was able to manage both and basically integrate recycling as part of the solid waste program. So there's never a discussion like, well, can we cut recycling, because it's already institutionalized and connected into the program. So that's something that to consider for those of you who may be separated, is at least combining that. And then lastly, we, in the last, I would say 6 years, was able to switch from the terminology of just trash and recycling to what we're calling today is our zero waste program. So in a nutshell, for zero waste, we had many discussions on this as Kirk as well, is that zero waste really incorporates everything under the umbrella of trying to decrease any waste going to the landfill or being incinerated. So you're talking about not only just recycling, but you're talking reduction, reuse, composting, rebuying, which is a big circular economy phrase that we're talking about. So make sure that, this is why we're talking about zero waste. Really quickly, I'm going to go through my slides really fast. I want to make sure we are able to get through my presentation today. So we're under administration, facility services, and Cal Zero Waste. Most of my time, like 90%, is we have in-house programs. So I manage all the trucks and the collections, grounds, collections of the materials. So that's my full-time staff, and with drivers and zero waste techs and groundskeepers. And I do have also a 8 to 9, 10-ish number of part-time students who work on our education program. So I just wanted to go through a little bit using an example at Berkeley, how we are developing or how we got to our point today. So we really got started with composting. So we had recycling already. It wasn't completely efficient, but students really wanted to do composting. So back in 2010, they applied for a grant. We have an on-campus called the Green Initiative Fund. And really it was again, something that our operations wasn't really into yet. Students wanted to do it. So we said, yep, let's work together. And it was managed by students. We got them set up, but it was connected to our buildings program and our custodians to collect the material. So students never did the collections of it, but they did help set it up and help us work with everyone to get it rolling. We had 18 buildings that was implemented. And this is also key. Why I mentioned this is that this got us started on what we call centralized bin collections. So people weren't collecting it at the desk, but told to go to the centralized locations to be able to recycle and also compost. Along that was really our starting point. So we were able to use that foundation to grow it into a more of a program. So we got another 25 buildings added to that program. And this is a picture of the centralized collection sets we have. It really, again, it's a collaborative effort. We work in partnership with the building managers, the custodians, and we were able to roll these programs forward in conjunction with the institutional program. So where we're at today, unfortunately, as most of you know, then we have a zero waste program, which was 2020. And then the pandemic hit and threw everything off. So, but as part of that goal is that the 2020 goal, we at least went and got all the programs and all of our on-campus buildings rolled out for centralized collections. So it's about 100 buildings we went through and got it done. We were able to hire some full-time, what we had called zero waste specialists to be able to implement that with our students. We had centralized and desk side collections, but again, desk side was provided so that they can take it to a centralized collection location. And so that happened up to about 2019. And then where we're at currently is we are now kind of suspended during the pandemic and we're trying to grow back. There's a ability that since we had these town hall implementations where we went out and implemented every single building on campus, we're hopefully able to do that already. That got us at least the infrastructure and the bins that are needed and funded. So where we're at, as I mentioned, we paused for a little bit. And then we're in process now recruiting hopefully a full-time specialist back, and then dedicating some staff, student staff along to educate. So as far as centralized bins only, our Haas Business School actually are starting, which is a great, again, collaborative between one of our, highlighted departments that they're now taking the run. And Chu Hall, as mentioned, is that True Zero Waste certified building that we had. They were also one of the first change makers for us. And they are now not only doing that building as a zero waste building, but looking at other buildings to only have centralized collections and taking away the desktop bins. So very good to have them as a partner for us and be able to show that it can be done. So when people ask like, well, how do you fund a building? How do you buy bins? So as I mentioned, there's a current budget already for trash bins, recycling bins, and any building for us to supply that as part of our budgets. So within custodial, indoors, landscape, and also any of the exteriors with our customers that we currently have that So I'm an in-house program, but we do charge for other entities. So that's embedded into their agreements that we provide bins for them. So again, this is one of the strategies for us to use, and easy kind of way for us to do that is if you look at when we first started, these are all the bins that we see in our buildings in offices, which if you look at the amount of workload and the amount of bins that we service, and not even that, the amount of liners that we had to use, it really is as we converted over to the centralized system with our system, this is our campus specification that now we use, and everyone basically is able to use this as part of the building. And we found a lot of efficiencies that now custodians know which bins to pick up, which liners to be used, and you can't go just down to a Target or a Walmart and buy a trash can and expect custodians to empty it. So these are our campus specs now, and which creates that institutional program that everyone understands that these are the bins that we use on campus. So part of that is, we won't get into too much of it today, but really it's the design of your buildings. You got to be involved in that. So here's a couple of pictures of actually, I walked in my first, I think this is 16 years ago, of the first building that I just was working with the architect to design. And it's not too far-fetched, because on the picture on the left is actually a picture I took at a open house at my daughter's high school, where they actually thought about having alcoves and things for trash bins. So kind of think about that as you develop your design infrastructure and buildings, that this is kind of a way to make sure that it's incorporated into the buildings. And you see on the picture on the right, you know, a lot of the refill stations, water stations also have these alcoves. So I kind of strategically place them next to those so that people know that they're able to collect the materials in those alcove locations. Definitely map them. So I won't go into this too far, but through all our implementation processes, we mapped where these locations are supposed to be. Because as you know, or those in operations, all the bins tend to have legs when they walk around. So we wanted to make sure as we implement them in buildings, we map them all. And now our custodians and the building managers know where they're supposed to be. As mentioned, we do a lot of education outreach. You know, you can have the bins out there, but that doesn't mean people know how to use them. So we did these town halls. We also have students who go out to do not only, again, just recycling and composting, but how they reduce their waste. How do we do reusables? So part of the 2020 transition, which we switched from zero waste by 2020 to zero waste 2020 and beyond, is now we are now flipping the concentration and our focus to reduction and reuse. Because even if we recycled and composted all we want, we still won't get to our zero waste goal effort. So really now, 3 years into 2020, we are looking at reduction and reuse as our strategies. So one last one I just want to point out, we did not do lab buildings when we first implemented the centralized and also offices. So we are working on that now. This is about 2 years in as a pilot program, realizing all our labs are also in the same bad shape of various types of bins that people have bought from outside, and asking our custodians, like, this is the bin you're supposed to service, even though, you know, we don't know which one they're supposed to handle. And then this is our new pilot zero waste program, which we kept calling pilot, but it's set now. So we took a page out of a company that was doing this already in their private company, and they had a consultant come in and they recommended that they should identify all the bins where they're supposed to be in labs, and made it really efficient for the labs to be able to put their materials in versus hunting bins down. So it was not only that, it was an efficiency process. And then we also linked this into a company who recycles the lab plastics back into lab plastics. So it really does help our circular economy discussion, that they're buying products back from what they're putting into the bin. So I'm going to go real quick. This is our outdoor program. We had every single type of bin out there that you can see in outdoor. And again, one time we got a huge support from our vice chancellor to say that we really do need a consistent system to show that we care, that we really want to get to zero waste. So we invested, again, it was a 3-phase rollout, but we've basically at this point now have their solar bellies for all the campus that's mapped. As I mentioned, throughout campus, we know exactly where they are, and it's a really great system. It reduces our workload as well. And then lastly, for metrics, which is really important, is to be able to measure, again, we're testing the measuring of materials also in weight on our trucks. So I mentioned the Chew Hall, we did get certified on the True Zero Waste with U.S. Green Building Council. And the particular on that is we have no landfill bins in this building at all. So key strategies, I'm going to run through these pretty fast, and if there'll be Q&A later. But kind of think about what I mentioned earlier. Zero waste is a business. It's a utility. It's not just a good thing to do, which I often get that challenge. Well, it's good, but we don't have to do it. It's only what the students want or staff want, but it's not like something we have to do. So it is treated as a business or utility, which we do, and is part of a unit. Institutionalize your program. Create your zero waste goal. That's one thing I keep needing to ask folks. You have to have a goal. After you have the goal, you have to have a plan, and then a roadmap of how to get to that goal. So that's one of the strategies, financial, and you add in your budgets that you need to do that. I know this might be a concern or maybe a challenge, but you do want to dedicate a full-time position for zero waste management. It's not something that is easy to do, but again, it's got to be embedded into your solid waste program and someone who really is looking at the numbers and to budgetize and how you grow this program. Possible on this is also add that incentive into your hauling contracts. It's been done on a lot of campuses where you either get rebates, equipment, education promotions. So kind of think about that. There are tons of examples out there how you can fund some of your programs by using your contracts. Advocate online zero waste campus policy. So continue, again, working with your students. We were able to pass our single-use plastic elimination policy purely because of the students, and how we're going to be able to move that forward is working with the students to do that. We're also very lucky in the city of Berkeley. We have an ordinance to stop litter and reduction. So we wanted to make sure that that happened as well, and aligning with state and federal regulations. Find and develop champions. This could be administration, faculty, staff, students, departments, or even a building, like in our case. Apply for grants, but keep in mind that those are not sustainable. Grants are good for case studies, for getting information, but we always start them as pilots, but there's a momentum to do built, and there's a tipping point that you basically have to make sure you have a budget to sustain those programs once the grant is done. Develop metrics, as mentioning, Zabel is a great one. I think my colleague will talk about it later, but there's all these other entities like LEED, True Zero Waste, APA, Race to Zero Waste, HE Stars. All these are metrics for us to use as our strategies to say this is important. Competition and rivalries, we use Stanford all the time in our competition. Say if they're Stanford doing it, we should be doing it, and they do the same. Cal is doing it, so we should be doing it. So use that effectiveness for your strategies. And then involve in sharing, like today. There's tons of us who really like to share some best practices and provide that to others. Some pitfalls. Be careful of when you get approached by offsite sorting, sorted on site. So this is a bin that was at one of the locations that I saw. It says, it's sorted on site somewhere, or it's dirty MRF somewhere. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You're gonna have you can put it into a bin and we'll take care of it. So be worried about that, because at that point it takes all the programs and education out of the user's hands, and basically defaults to the dumbest possible operational unit. Be careful of mail-in, recycling, and niche programs where don't worry about it. You can just put it into an envelope or a box and mail it back to us, and we'll recycle it for you. So be careful of that as far as financial pitfalls, because they charge for those services and whether or not it's being recycled. Not connected to, as mentioned, facilities operations or the education that needs to be combined in programs and facilities. Use of one-time funding. I've seen this many times where campuses decide to use a consultant, provide all that money. They come up with a financial report and also suggestion recommendations, and then there's no money to actually implement. So be very careful on that side. Consultants are great to come in and provide information, but you've got to be able to budget for it to implement the recommendations. Collaboration is key. On our campuses, we have so many silos, so just make sure you're contacting, connecting with housing and events, everybody. And then zero waste, as I mentioned, is not a part-time job. And as some of you have sustainability and zero waste is part of what you do. But really, from what I have seen, it really have to have a full-time position to be able to grow this program and make sure you don't have financial issues. So thank you. I will turn it back over, and this is my email contact.
Okay, thank you, Lynn, for that. We do have a few questions, but I think just to make sure Shannon has time to say what she wants to say, we'll maybe save all the Q&A for the end. So if you have other questions for Lynn, feel free to add those into the Q&A, and we'll cover as many as we can once we get to the end. Okay, thanks again, Lynn. All right, so our second presenter today is Shannon Caveny-Cox from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Shannon joined the sustainability office at UNC Charlotte in January 2021 as the solid waste coordinator. In this position, she focuses on strategic planning to support recycling operations, including developing standard practices and documenting these processes and procedures. Previously, she was the recycling manager for the university and was in charge of the recycling program, including daily operations, education, and outreach programs. She has also been in charge of the construction demolition recycling program at UNC Charlotte and spent a few years as the recycling coordinator for a local county operation. She is an alum of UNC Charlotte and has been with the university for almost 20 years in all those varying roles. Okay, thanks for being with us today, Shannon, and I will now turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to let you know first off that our program, or this presentation that we're doing, is more about just having a sustainable recycling program in general. So we went through a severe restructure. Our program has significantly changed, and we've learned some pretty good lessons that we want to be able to share with everyone. So this is kind of how we're regrowing our program, trying to change university culture so that our program is not considered expendable in the future. And then we're also trying to figure out how to do some of the same things we used to do with less staff. So information on UNC Charlotte. So we started in 1946 as basically an evening college for people returning from World War II. We became a 4-year institution and part of the UNC system in 1965. Total on campus, we've got about 34,000 people between our staff and students, and then lots of buildings. It's about 1,000-acre campus. Pretty good size. Got a lot of stuff to take care of. So originally, back before COVID, we were very fortunate. We had a recycling program. We had 17 people in it that were focused entirely on recycling. So our technicians would pick up recycling from about 1,500 interior stops. They were taking care of everything that was academic administrative. They would pick up from loading docks of the residence halls and some of the support buildings. And then they had about 250 exterior recycling bins, but all they focused on was the recycling. So we had building environmental services, which is our custodial staff. Those techs collected the trash, and then grounds collected trash from outside. So very split up, and we just focus again on recycling. Just before COVID, we got a new director for facilities. He was really invested in restructuring all of the areas of facilities. He wanted to reduce the number of facilities management staff and kind of streamline our operations. Very focused on efficiency and cost savings, and he was trying to actually be able to cut positions to reduce those costs. So in the midst of him restructuring everything, the pandemic hit, and this was a pretty destructive combination altogether. So people were already frustrated with the changes that he was making. We're leaving facilities before the pandemic started. So even when the pandemic hit, we were lower staffing than what we should have done or should have had. And then once the pandemic hit, it just made the effect that much worse. We had more people that left, either retired or went to find other positions. And even once we were able to post positions, we weren't able to fill them. So morale was pretty low. People were getting additional tasks. They were getting their functions changed. And I imagine everybody else had fairly similar experience as people were, like I said, retiring or going to find those remote jobs. So we had a lot of trouble actually getting people to even apply for positions to come to work in person. So the end result of that, we ended up with the recycling staff basically being cut in half. Recycling manager position was abolished. The education positions that we had were abolished. And the function of the recycling staff changed. So they got pulled out of the buildings. They were no longer going inside to talk to people and collect recycling. They were strictly outside. They started cleaning parking decks, so cleaning elevators, blowing down stairways, picking up litter. And then we're picking up recycling only from the building loading docks and from the exterior recycling containers. And then they started picking up the trash from the outside. So in a lot of ways, the recycling staff kind of became an extension of the grounds department. Inside the buildings, the recycling collections got handed off to the PES staff. So those people were already suffering enough. They, again, were having staffing shortages. They had their vacant positions that were cut and not able to be hired, but they were being given additional tasks, recycling collection being one of those. And it wasn't really their top focus. They were focused on trying to keep the buildings clean, disinfecting things to keep them safe for the people that were on campus. So with all this going on, our diversion rate actually only dropped by about 5%, but we had specifically been told not to sort materials, so we were sending a lot more trash to the recycling facilities. Those of us that were in the recycling program were pretty devastated because we were basically getting the word from the university that what we were doing, our jobs weren't important. So very dark times for us. For those of us that made it through that darkness, it's always darkest before the dawn. And during the pandemic, we did get a lot of changeover in staff. So we had a new chancellor that started immediately after things had shut down for the pandemic. She got here that summer. Our facilities management head that had caused so much disruption left. We got a new person in charge. And then the person between them, between the chancellor and her facilities boss, the vice chancellor of business affairs, that person also changed. So everybody in the reporting structure for facilities all the way up to the chancellor turned over. Based on that, our university sustainability officer was able to get a new position that partially replaced the recycling coordinator, that manager position. And this position was going to focus on strategic planning, policies, SOPs, trying to document procedures. And then we got a new building environmental services and recycling director. And he replaced the operational half of the recycling coordinator position. So we've now got that position split into two parts. One of us can focus on the future. The other one is focusing on the daily operation. And we're able to work together pretty closely to plan, implement, and then document all of our collection processes and new programs. So yes, we lost a lot of ground during the restructuring, but we are now back in a position where we've got a lot of support to rebuild the program. And we're actually being encouraged to exceed what we used to have. So our new leaders are wanting to run the university more as a business. They've included sustainability and recycling in the strategic plan for the university. And then we're currently in the process of updating our 10-year master plan. And our sustainability officer has a seat at the table for that. So he's been continually pushing, trying to include the infrastructure and space that we need for recycling and waste collection on campus. Trying to get us minor things like loading docks and truck accessibility for trash and recycling collection. So things that historically have been left out, he's trying to make sure that those are part of the master plan going forward. So as we start to regroup on everything, and as we're planning how to recreate and improve our recycling program, we realized that there's a lot of things that we can do to sort of help ourselves. So for the two of us that are in these new recycling roles, we've got a lot of historical knowledge and institutional knowledge. We've both been here for a while, but we realize most of that's not documented. So as Lynn mentioned, kind of trying to institutionalize the process, we're trying to document things, we're trying to make them part of what we do. This is just how UNC Charlotte works. We do this. So we're trying to document those. And we're trying to document both the existing and the historical. So we want to make sure that the people that are here in the future know how we got to where we are today. We want them to know what the costs are. We want them to know how we're saving money or how we're reducing costs for the university. And then at the same time, we're also looking at our staffing. We're trying to figure out what can we still handle in-house, and what do we need to look for partners on. Can we do waste audits? We used to do a lot of waste audits to help see how effective we were. And we've got to figure out, can we handle those with the staffing that we've got available to us now? So second, we also want to be very visible. We've got to tell people the story of recycling. We used to win a lot of awards. And as we got busier, we just sort of stopped promoting ourselves. So we've realized again that we need to make sure that we're telling people what we're doing, both people on campus and off campus. One of the first projects, as I was listening to Lynn, sounded very familiar. One of the first projects that we did was we standardized our outdoor containers across campus. So we went to make sure that we had better places to place bins, where they were better pedestrian access, better access for the people that were serving them, and then making sure that everything was paired up. So we always had trash and recycling. So this was something that was very visible. We got some really good relationships and really good feedback from our campus partners, and people that are servicing bins have been very appreciative of this. So we want to make sure that we're doing more of the high visibility, high impact projects like this. Also, like Berkeley, we're also working on doing our interior collection, trying to standardize those containers, those bins, make sure that things aren't growing legs moving around, and try to minimize how differently things look. So again, another high visibility, high impact project that we're working on, kind of using to tell the story. And then finally, we realized that we really needed to do a better job sharing data. So Lynn mentioned this also. Inefficient waste systems cost staff, they cost resources, which cost money. So we want to make things as efficient as possible. And we've always collected data about our recycling collections, but we haven't always been good about sharing that data outside of our department. So some of the methods of collecting data, like those waste audits, and tend to be kind of labor intensive. And so we've also been looking at ways to measure our impact, measure the waste that are a little less labor intensive and that are easier to collect that information and share with the campus. So for that, we've looked at some technology solutions, trying to see if they could make things easier for us. So the first one that we looked at was Apple. Matt mentioned two different portions of it. We're using the mobile tagging portion. So it's an AI-powered app that allows you to take pictures of your materials. You input all of your bins, whatever stops and locations you want to take, and then he can take pictures of the bins. So if you see on the right picture, we've got how full the bin is. We've got acceptable items, so I can select what acceptable items are if I want to. When I click on the contamination and say how much contamination is in there, I can also put in what the wrong items were. And then you can set up alerts, as Matt mentioned, that will email back. So we've set up alerts that say, hey, this is not the right liner. or if a bin is missing, or if it's been moved, we're able to send an email back immediately to the people that it impacts. And the benefit to this is it pulls all this information back into a dashboard that makes it easy to share with others. So far this is working. We're initially focusing on one of our retail dining facilities. We want to increase our compost collections in the back of house and then clean up the recycling collections in the front of the house. So there's a lot of involvement setting up the stops initially. You can see in here, this is where you can add the acceptable items. It's a similar screen for adding the unacceptable items. But you set it up, you customize it completely to what your waste streams are, which has been very helpful for us. When you've got your bins entered, all the pictures and the information that scans get pulled back into the dashboard, so you are able to see what your data is just at a glance. So this one wanted to show who is our back of house collection. So we're trying to do trash collection, recycling collection, and then compost. And you can see they do this nice word cleft on here. For the landfill, we've got a lot of paper towels and food. That's something we need to focus on. For the recycling, we've got a lot of food in there. And then for the compost, we're getting a lot of plastic stuff. So we've got a lot of education that we can do back of house. This is our baseline data. We'll take this, use it to go do some education and training for the dining staff. And then we'll be able to go back and measure those containers again to see how they worked. Similarly, this one's our front of house collection. So for this one, because it's a public area, students, we're not going to be able to do the in-person training, but we'll be able to do signage, all that contamination that you can see in the recycling bins, those paper cups, plastic cups. If we were to drill down a little bit deeper, you'd see there's actually 2 or 3 containers that have severe problems. And so we're going to be able to go back, set those up better, do restrictive openings, make sure they're paired up with the trash cans. And then we'll play with some different signage and see what works. But this program is allowing us to do some of the waste audit information, but in a fraction of the time, much less cost because we're not tying up multiple people trying to dig through the bins themselves. So it's been very helpful. The other project that we're actually working on them with is we're experimenting with Apple at our football stadium. So football is a zero waste program, zero waste facility. And this is something else that we need to do a better job of sharing with the rest of the campus. But we've been trying to come up with a way to track our actual weights of materials as we sort the material the day after the football game. And you can see this was our last game, so we've actually got the pounds as we weighed materials, pounds of everything, and are able to show what went where. So again, a great dashboard that we can use on campus. And then the benefit is that we can download all of the data that we enter into Apple, so then we're able to pull information out, sort it in different ways, or share information with whoever we need to. Then the other thing is, Lynn also mentioned the wish cycling, which also costs a lot of money since you're throwing out materials that should have just gone to the landfill. We're also trying Recollect, which is part of the Routeware suite. This one basically acts like a recycling waste disposal search engine. It's also completely customizable where we've put all of our information in to make it correct for our campus. So they've got a starting database that's the picture on the right. You put in what your streams are, where those materials should go for you. On the left, we've got the streams that we put in. And then you can also add in any additional materials or additional names. You can add in misspellings, or things like if somebody wanted to search cat food can or soup can rather than tin can. So you can add in all kinds of things on that. And then it's also got a nice dashboard at the end of it. So as we finish getting this implemented, we'll actually be able to see what materials people are looking for, what they're searching, and how often people are using the tool. So again, something that we'll be able to share with our administration or other partners on campus. And we have set up, as we were doing the interior bins and redoing all of those collection containers. We also did new signage. We put a QR code on those recycling bins, and that takes people directly to this widget. So as we're redoing our recycling webpage, it will also be on that. And once we get the recycling webpage out and publicized, then we'll really start promoting the school. So finally, those are the two software programs that we're really using and how we're trying to gain from them on campus. But we're also putting out our existing waste hauling contract. It's about to expire, so we're working on putting it out as an RFP. And we're hoping that we get some more partners through that process that will work with us on some of the technology and help us better track materials that are leaving campus. So even though we're in a very populated area, we're actually pretty limited on our outlets. We've only got a couple of MRFs in the Charlotte area. We do compost, but the closest compost facility is about 40-45 minutes away. So we're hoping that we can use all this technology and whatever technology our new hauling contractors are able to help us with. Hopefully we can use that to make some better decisions on what we're disposing of and how we're disposing of it. So I'm not able to share actual results yet. We're still in the process of just getting things set up or doing our baseline studies, but I'm happy to share information as we progress through and get more information. And then in the meantime, I just want to go back to this page, remind you what we learned through this rebuilding process. Just make sure that you're documenting everything, your processes, your procedures. Make sure that everybody knows what an integral part you are, how important you are. And then make sure that you're efficient, because again, the inefficiencies cost money. Tell your story. And I know everybody has been told to not stand out, that, we should be in the background and not being seen. But I would encourage everybody to make sure that you're proud of what you do. Let others know why your job is so important and why you do it. And then if you guys have questions, feel free to reach out to me. There's my contact information. And Jamie, I'll pass it back to you for questions.
Yeah, thanks so much, Shannon. We are pretty close on time. I guess I did have one question. How often are you doing the spot checks with the Zabel system?
So we are trying to do them 3 days a week right now.
Oh, okay.
And our goal is to get this one building done and then spread it to another dining facility. So we've got 5 or 6 different buildings on campus that have those dining facilities in them. And we'll try to work around, get everybody trained. And then for the spot checks, when we get everything in place, we'll probably go to just, once a week or so. I guess for the training, we'll do the training, then we'll do the 3 days a week again for a couple weeks. And then we'll go to just periodic once a week or so.
Right. Okay. Well, we are right at time. We will maybe, if our presenters can hang out, if there are some other questions, we can try to, get to those. But as I mentioned, today is the 5th in our webinar series for the year. The last one will be in December. You can see on the screen there, the focus will be on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So be on the lookout for more information about that to come. And we are also always looking for presenters or topic ideas. And there is an interest form available there at the website that's also shown on the screen. So again, thanks again to Lynn and Shannon for your time and participation today. And thanks again to Matt and Zabel for your sponsorship. And to Leanna, who stepped up with the behind the scenes assistance today. And yeah, look for the presentation and the recording at the website, and also you will get an email with that information as well. So enjoy the rest of your day. And if there was anyone that had a question that wanted to hang out, we will maybe stick on for just another minute or two. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like we actually didn't get a ton of questions. You all just nailed it.
We just covered all the materials.
Yeah.
It's so funny, Shannon, as we're talking. I've seen that so many times.